Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Happy and blessed Monday, blessed vigil of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist, bonfire night. We actually just got back from having a little bit of a campfire in our fire pit. Not really building up yet to the bonfire status, but hey, just starting the tradition this year and hope to be able to build upon it more and more and more as the years go by. And overall, it was pretty successful. We roasted some hot dogs. We had some s'mores. It was delightful. So again, blessed commemoration of the Vigil of St. John the Baptist, his nativity being commemorated tomorrow. It's a traditional practice to have a bonfire in honor of St. John the Baptist. And so thank you all again for being here. Episode 561 of the Welcome to Asgard podcast, where tonight we're going to spend some time going through just how much of a flop, how much of a problem Disney has with the film Elio, or Elio. In fact, I honestly don't care which one is the correct pronunciation or not, because regardless of that, the movie is not doing well. In fact, with the new updated actuals from the domestic weekend box office numbers, it actually tracked down a little bit, meaning the film opened to 34.8 million versus the over 35 million worldwide that had initially been projected. And so we'll talk about what those numbers actually mean and have our typical box office discussion. Thank y'all again for being here. Before going any further, please make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you smash the rumble button as well. Also light up that fire button over on Odyssey. We are live streaming over on Twitter/X as well, so make your presence known on any of those platforms. I do have the multi-chat up, so I should be able to see all of your comments. Sorry, I was about maybe a minute late. Fox1 saying I was a minute late. Literally was ready to go. Had my my camera up, my baby cameras up for my kids and my son, who is 4, who's gotten into this habit of getting out of bed several times, especially when there's things that are, going on still at the house. We were still having to clean up a bit from the bonfire, rather not really bonfire, but from our fire pit and everything. And he just wanted to see what was going on and say his good nights and do everything. If you have kids, doing anything and everything just to keep the night going along. So sorry, I was just a smidge late because of that. Let's go ahead though and say hello to the people who are hanging out in the chat. So first things first, we had Snortopoopus. What is going on, Snortopoopus? Let me get this set up right. Can I get it set up right? That'll work. Who says, hello, humans and other quitters. What's going on, Snortopoopus? Very glad to have you here. Then saying hello to me. Howdy, howdy. GMonkey76 hanging out in the chat. What's going on? Shorty Short, Laura, the Mother Major General story. Also hanging out tonight. Thank you for being here. One of the mods here on the channel, so please make sure to follow the rules or she will destroy you. Scary music. I hope that I hit the correct one for the starting soon. If I didn't, it's because I mentioned this last time also that I was using for several months a program called Prism Live, which has a lot of really good features, including multi-stream built right into the system. Unfortunately, they have now gone the direction that many of these starting for free platforms have gone, which is starting to hide key features behind a paywall. I remember when Restream did this to, not as rough of a degree, but still enough to where it made me sour on them quite a bit. And Prism's now doing it. There was a really cool AI reader that did a great job of translating articles. Like any article you could find online, it would translate it and turn it into a small little audio file format. And it was actually really, really good. And that was free, almost, with no restrictions. I think like if you dove into the weeds a bit, it's like, okay, if you're getting to an excessive amount, maybe then it will start to restrict you. But for people like me, where it's like casual, yes, watching here and there, maybe in total a couple hours a week or so, we're good. Now, all of a sudden, they are deciding to put a paywall up. And what's funny is that they did that announcement, and then I don't think it went over well because the restrictions were stupid and not clear. So it went away, and then it just recently came back, and they've changed the entire dynamic of exactly how they're going to be pushing that forward. So it's just unfortunate that we live in that age where things that start off free with no indication that they will become hidden behind a paywall down the line are starting to all get paywalled. Luckily, OBS is as open source as ever, and because of sites like Stream Elements, I was able to bring in a couple of cool features from them and basically get the same functionality. And so hopefully everything is going through swimmingly. For some reason in the actual app itself, it's not showing up as green, or it's not saying that it's okay. But then when I went to each platform, the streams were coming through. So again, thank you all for being here. Forever Sci-Fi, who is a member here on the channel, saying, hail all, hail to you. Keely Chow hanging out saying, hello everybody. We got Mr. Roy. Hello. What's going on, Mr. Roy? Welcome back, one of the chosen of Valhalla. Thanatos Felicitas saying, hello Odin, hello to you. Thanatos, welcome. At 7:29 p.m. Keely Chow laying down the rules. Yeah, no cursing. Don't give anyone you don't like the middle finger. We like to keep things PG here on the channel. We're a family-friendly channel here. Kimberly saying, hello everyone. Different music sounds like Avengers a bit to me. Unfortunately, that means it was the summer music that was playing. So that is the theme song for, hold on, let me fix this camera real quick. It's going to bother me. There we go. That's better. Yeah, that's the summertime theme. So when I do my Good Morning Asgard podcast, that's the theme song that plays. I don't know why it was in the Starting Soon one. I might have to look into that after the stream is over. Keely Chow then saying, hey, Odin, how are you, Thor, Freya, baby, Sif, doing well. Crazy that Sif is now a little toddler and is in her no phase and is just, again, very much taking ownership of herself, wanting to be very much Little Miss Independent in many ways, including with things that she just clearly cannot do or does not clearly understand to any degree either. But anyway, Keely Chow, thanks for checking in. Everyone is doing well. Fox One called me out for being just a minute late. That's okay. Justin C. hanging out. Hail. He tagged to say, wonder how this week's releases of F1 and Megan 2.0 will do before Jurassic Rebirth releases next Wednesday. It is going to be very interesting, to say the least, and I'm pretty sure that catches me up on the chat, so I'll now delete that window, and then I'll then extend the chat over here. So there we go with Justin C. About F1. Yes, so the early tracking on F1 is not looking all that great. For a film that costs between 200 and 300 million, I've heard some people, especially on YouTube, say 300 million. However, the reporting, and this is where the trades come in, and we've gone through before about how you always should have to take the budget reported by trades with a grain of salt because they're getting word from the studio. The studio is going to want them to get the number that they want the audiences to think, or they want their investors to think is the actuality, not going into the nuances of, well, that was our production cost, but it doesn't take into account our post-production costs, which in reality is always a part of those production costs. But I digress. It's interesting to see that, but whether it's $200-300 million, the opening domestic at least is still not looking all that great. I feel like it's tracking a little bit better. Some very positive word of mouth from people like Jeremy. Actually, I don't know if Jeremy Johns has seen it yet, but John Flickinger, I know that he got to see an early screening of it, and though he did love it, he still really enjoyed it. He basically said it is Top Gun Maverick with race cars. So that sounds like a fun time to me, as long as it's able to keep my attention and have characters that are at least, palatable. We'll be okay. Kimberly G saying, campfire s'mores are the best. This is indeed a fact. It's also fun because the first time that we were doing it as a family, I, of course, had to do the speech from The Sandlot. The first time I did a variation because my kid's still too young to fully understand it. But then like the second and third time, that's when I was like, first you take the graham, you stick the chocolate on the graham, then you roast the mallow. So good. And they did indeed taste quite delightful. Luke Zilla, hail to you at 7:32, saying, dropping by to say a quick hello before heading to an early screening of Jurassic World Rebirth. Well, I hope that you enjoy it. John Flickinger's word basically gives me what I thought the movie was going to be. He said it's better than the more recent Jurassic World movies. He didn't really specify whether that includes Jurassic World itself. So it's definitely not a return to form. And that's kind of what we were hoping it was going to be. I think that it kind of needs to be that if it's going to get some of the more, I guess, normie or maybe the more well-studied normie audience. By that, I mean those that have an idea of what's going on in the industry, can kind of, take in movies, look at them from a somewhat critical eye, and are the kinds that are willing to stay home on a movie, right? If they don't feel like a film has really earned their keep, has really earned their wallet, their dollars, or their time, then they'll just be very clear to say, nope, not going to happen. And I have a feeling that could end up being the thing that makes the movie the first of these Jurassic World films to not cross that $1 billion mark, which, again, is not the end-all be-all for most movies, but those films also tend to cost quite a bit of money. And so that also always has to be taken into account as well. All right. Let's see. Kincaid Rumsky, what is Elio even about? Basically, the basic premise that I have heard and read, I still need to watch the movie myself to give my actual official thoughts on the matter. But what you have going on is a story of a kid who kind of feels out of place. And so he wants to be abducted by aliens, and then he is abducted by aliens. It's kind of like that movie Can of Worms. I don't know if y'all remember that from back in the day. It was a Disney Channel original movie. And then this kid, he was really excited about going to this dance. He even made this jacket that lit up and did all this cool stuff. And then the mean kids play a prank. He runs home and decides to build this makeshift little satellite dish that just, beamed into the sky a message. And eventually aliens start showing up and trying to take him. So that's kind of what happens, it seems like, in this movie, based off of what we've heard. So the basic plot is that aliens do end up coming, and then shenanigans ensue. I've also heard that the main protagonist is not very much a character you really want to like that much, simply because he does some pretty bad guy moves. He, steals things, and the guy who ends up being the bully is only a bully after the fact of him doing a lot of these bad things. So yeah, I don't know exactly what the, mentality was behind the writing of those characters and if they were planning for those characters to, do much of anything else, but it's not looking good. Justin C, make sure that's the next one. Yeah. Justin C, one can only speculate how much Disney will be in the red by the end of 2025. You would think that, Justin C, but remember, if we're taking into this a more holistic approach, including profits from last year's movies, going to Inside Out 2, going to Deadpool Wolverine, they're actually still in the black, technically. Now, caveat, that does depend on whether or not, one, the Elio budget is only $150 or is closer to the $300 million that was reported. Also depends on how much that Captain America budget ended up being also, as there was a lot of speculation for that movie. Also, when it comes to Lilo and Stitch, how much extra money in the post-production process or even in production had to be spent to get it ready for the big screen. You don't just take a movie that's being made for Disney Plus and then say, oh, we'll just keep it exactly the same and not do anything else to get it ready, whether it be rendering the visual effects, whether it be adding certain contextual things that would make more sense to a live audience. Those are the things that we don't know. And so the original budget for that movie was $100 million, but I suspect 150-ish, if not more, would make a lot more sense as far as, transitioning that over. In addition, they probably spent at least $100 million in actual marketing on the movie too. Those also then add up quite a bit. So it may not be as much in the red as you would think. If you're just looking for 2025 numbers, however, yeah, things aren't looking good, because Elio is expected to be one of the biggest flops of the year. The Morak, hail to you, Morak, glad to have you here. However, Sci-Fi saying, I'm impressed that most of these studios don't seem to have internal auditors on some of these projects. Even if there isn't open fraud, they must be spending money on stupid things. You would think so. The other thing that I know that Tom brought this up on the Salty Saturday stream we do every week. Check out the Salty Saturday podcast. Wonderful group of guys. Always a lot of fun. But it was Tom, and I think it was also Matthew Kadish as well, who brought up a great point that always has to be restated, and it's nothing new, that one of the big reasons as to why Hollywood spends as much as it does on these movies is because of the union rules. Because in order for the films to be made and for them to be in consideration for SAG and to be consideration for these other things, they have to fall in line with union rules. In fact, for some of them, they have to hire union workers if they want to have anyone at all. Otherwise, they could face fines and other punishments. And because of that, then it means that the starting price of your people coming in is, one, going to be higher, but also, two, you have to follow then the rules of that same union that you have now hired workers from, which means you have to provide certain things for them, including having multiple people to do basically the same job, amongst other things. And so that balloons the budget quite a bit. You add to that unneeded visual effects, an overworked team of visual effects creators who are, working with whatever it is that they can. Just because you throw more money at them does not necessarily mean that you're going to get the quality, right? Because quality itself doesn't just come out of nowhere. You can't just buy quality. It comes from the heart in many instances and for many cases. You take all these things together, add them up, and you realize very quickly, oh, this is why the films cost sometimes $300+ million before any tax breaks or incentives. Michael Regat saying, hey, Odin, yes, Jeremy Johns has seen F1, and he said it was awesome-tacular. Okay, good to know. He does not give those very often, so that makes me very happy. Definitely looking forward to that. Luke Zilla, as long as it's entertaining, it's a win for me. A buddy of mine who saw it last Tuesday liked it more than the last three and said it felt more like the true spiritual sequel to the first trilogy. Yeah, I think that was John Flickinger who said it has kind of a reminiscent feel to Jurassic Park 3. Not necessarily that it's the same story or the same beats, but that it has that same, I guess, general feel, at the very least, enjoyability. So, you know how most people, they will go back and say, okay, OG Jurassic Park, no one can touch it. Lost World, there is a 50-50 split, it seems. Some people love it, some people hate it. I happen to really like it. Jurassic Park 3, that's another one that can be somewhat divisive too. I think it's much more positively received by more people, but for me, I actually am a bit more of a critic of it. I didn't hate the movie, but I did enjoy 2 a bit more, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. So you have this very interesting fan base that can kind of go in every which way direction. But to have the movie compared then to 3, if it hits the same tone, and at least if it has the same reception that 3 had, that would be a good thing, because that would mean that a large portion of the audience would be accepting of it, whereas a much smaller group would say, no, this is also ridiculous. We, of course, will have to wait and see. And Blazin64, what's going on? JS Pena says, ahoy! Ahoy to you, JS Pena. Forever Sci-Fi, who's a member, thank you again for being a member. If you are a member here on the channel, it means that you don't have to put @Odin at the very beginning of your comment if you want a comment read aloud, or if you want it to be having a question answered, anything like that. Also, of course, you can super chat, donate via Streamlabs, all of those various options. But if you are a member, a YouTube member specifically, yeah, you don't have to worry about tagging. Funny how we went from Jimmy Neutron, where the story showed the consequences of talking to strangers, to Abduct Me Strangers. It is quite interesting, isn't it? It is quite interesting, isn't it, to see just how crazy things have really gotten. Agreed. All right, let's go ahead then and dive straight into the main story of the night, which of course is all about Elio. Elio. Again, I don't really care all that much. But before diving into Elio, we do have to make something very, very clear, because you come here to OMB Reviews for a variety of reasons. It could be because things are a bit more chill here than on other places. We have a smaller community here, which means it's easier to get a word in edgewise, to get questions answered, and all those other things. And or it's just because you enjoy the content themselves. Whatever the reason is, I thank you for being here. And please, again, smash that like button, and wherever you are, just again, smash whatever it is that's in front of you as far as any buttons are concerned. But also, just always remember that when it comes to this channel, there's one thing that you can rely on.
Time to see a real math magician at work!
That's right, everybody. You can always rely on it being time for the math, and time to see a real math magician at work. And so, as you can see, we have the box office for Elio on the screen. and it is not a good sign. It opened to $20.8 million domestically and only $14 million internationally for a total of $34.8 million. This would make it one of the worst, if not the worst, opening weekends for a Pixar film ever, or at the very least in quite some time. The only movie that the film is actually not able to lose to is the movie Strange World, which is notorious for being the worst animated feature to come from Disney, not making them, like, only making $80 million globally by the end of that film's run. For more information on this, I recommend reading my article over on geeksandgamers.com. If you don't know, I do still work for geeksandgamers.com. I write a box office breakdown article every single week. It usually goes live sometime either Sunday evening or Monday morning, depending on the editor's workload. He is a very hard-working man. Shout out to you, Alex. But I do have a whole section in here on Elio, including also where I think How to Train Your Dragon is going to end up. Let's just say I don't think $1 billion is on the table. It's just not tracking as well as to do that. And also, speaking of $1 billion, why I think now Lilo and Stitch actually does have a chance to hit $1 billion once again, since this past weekend's numbers, especially internationally, were actually really good, made up for some of the speculation and doubts that were creeping in as of last weekend. But let's go ahead and just actually read through this portion of the article that I wrote, because I do think it helps to add further context as to just how bad of a release this is for Disney. Right? Disney had a huge hit in Lilo and Stitch. Hundreds of millions of dollars in net profits. That's a huge win for them. However, they've also had other films. For instance, they've also had films like Captain America: Brave New World, which was a massive catastrophe for them. They've also had Thunderbolts, which is also a massive catastrophe for them. And this going up against, right, the current era of what's going on, right, the Lilo and Stitch era of the box office, is something that I think we really should pay attention to, because there were some, for some reason, in my comment section were like, oh, Elio's going to take audiences away from Lilo and Stitch and from these movies instead of keep them from. And I was like, look, I'm sorry, Elio's marketing, I think they spent probably the same amount, because Disney overspends on everything, even if it's bad. And I would not be surprised if they spent the same amount of money they always do on these movies for their budgets and for their marketing budget specifically. So for a film that they claim, the trades claim, cost $125 million, $150 million to make, we would then have to assume that the overall cost of the film would have to be somewhere around $250-ish million, depending on their marketing spend, meaning a break even of around $450 million or so is a very likely number. That being said, there's also reports from places like World of Real that talk about how the movie actually cost around $300 million because the ballooned budget. The poster on thenumbers.com, interestingly enough, I pointed this out in my box office breakdown video. Let me see if I can get closer on this. Enhance. There we go. Oh, too big. A little bit too close. If you look at this poster right here, though, you can see, what does it say? Only in theaters 2024. Only in theaters 2024. So what does that mean? It's that reminder that this film was supposed to have come out last year, but it didn't. Why? It got delayed. Delays usually lead to or are because of reshoots, and it also helps to remember that this movie's director left the project because of not feeling like he could actually finish it. They had to bring in then 2 other directors. That's right. They had to bring in 2, also happened to be 2 female directors, to come in and to try to finish the movie and apparently put their own spin on the story as well. His version was supposed to be a little bit more serious, a little bit more of a sci-fi-esque movie, animated film, animated feature. And then they came in and their job was to try to make it more lively, to make it more fun, to make it a funnier movie. Apparently, those 2 things are clashing, and what you end up getting is a narrative mess, which has some of the worst art design in movies in the Pixar universe. I know that is something that was very much being harped on by Alan Ng of Film Threat. So shout out to Alan Ng of Film Threat. But whatever the case might be, a $34.8 million number is really, really bad. And let me go ahead and go back to my article here on geeksandgamers.com just to go further into why and how bad this really is. Just when it seemed that Disney was turning the corner with the massive hit Lilo and Stitch, reality came crashing back down as their latest movie, Elio, opened to some of the worst numbers we have seen for a Disney animated movie in modern memory. Even well-known animated Disney flops like The Good Dinosaur opened to an adjusted $74 million in its opening domestic. Looking at the last few years, this $21 million domestic opening is less, and now it's actually 20.8, I think, so it actually got deducted there. This is opening less than the adjusted $30.6 million for Elemental. Some have said maybe this will do what Elemental did. Elemental didn't have a very big opening weekend either, and it ended up leaking out. Elemental, though, had much more positive praise, as I go into here, and only just beat out the most notorious recent flop from 2022 of Strange World, which only ended up making an adjusted $80 million by the end of its release. And again, I go further into it from there. To add insult to injury, this is also the worst than the adjusted $54 million opening for the 2022 Lightyear release. And because Elio's budget is somewhere between $150 and $300 million before marketing, it means that we are likely looking at one of the biggest flops of 2025 and potentially one of the biggest in the last several years. No matter where you end up on the budget debate, there is essentially no mathematical chance for Elio to make the $450 to $900 million dollars that it would need to break even theatrically. With many of the stories about reshoots and the changing of directors before the movie was finished, seemingly the norm with modern Disney, it's surprising that they just didn't throw Elio straight onto Disney Plus or even can it altogether to take the tax write-off. I do ask that question of, I mean, seriously, would not have it potentially been a better financial move for you to do that? This is big numbers here. It's not like a situation with an Amazon release or an Apple TV Plus release where they put their films out theatrically. On paper, they're not huge hits, but because they were already put on streaming and meant for streaming, any money they make theatrically is just bonus to them and therefore actually ends up being a net positive for them, even though they might still lose money on it because subscriptions don't necessarily pay for them in any direct way. Goes on to say, ultimately, with a total worldwide opening of only $35 million, now adjusted down to $34 million, if Elio has an average box office run, it would mean getting only about $90 million. Though this would technically beat Strange World from 2022, for that to happen in 2025, in the midst of a massive Disney box office win in Lilo and Stitch, there is no excuse for this happening. So some may harp on about how this is the reason we don't get original films from major studios anymore. But what they forget is that even since the time of the pandemic, we have had original movies, including animated ones, do a heck of a lot better than this. Elemental, though not the biggest of box office hits, is a great example, as it opened weekly with only $44.5 million in its unadjusted global opening and was able to leg out to roughly $500 million in its adjusted opening. Though one could argue that this could still happen for Elio, the fact is that currently, as of the writing of that article, it had only had 6 reviews over on Criticlist. Now let's go ahead and pull this up since I linked that there. It's now up to 8 reviews on Criticlist, and it's still not much better. So 11 minutes ago, American Hero gave it a 79% rad score. Dark Force gave it a 78% bogus score. Look at the scores here. Bogus, heinous, bogus, decent, bogus, decent, rad. So we have 2 rad scores, and all of the others are decents or less, with most of it being either bogus or heinous. That is where the film is coming from. The other thing, too, is keep in mind, the rating for movies on Criticlist don't get public, right? The audience score does not show up until at least 10 reviews have been posted. What that tells me is that people are not going to see this movie. I mean, the box office would have told you that already because of how small that number is. But the fact that even a site like Criticlist, which has a much higher movie-going populace, more people than average who are going to see movies probably at least once, if not twice a month, or even more often than that, right? More movie buff type personalities. If it's only getting 8 people going to see it within its opening weekend, that's not a very good sign. And to have the reactions in addition to that be bad, and very, very bad, to say that at least, right? This is a movie that right now, based off of these trackings, if we have another decent or bogus score, it's going to be either a low bogus or it's going to be a very high, a low decent or a very high bogus score by the end of its run. When that eventually does go live. So this audience reaction just is not there. On the contrary, if you go over to Elemental, it boasts a 61% rad score with only 23 reviews, so still not a whole lot, especially if you look at some of the other films on that platform, but most of them are actually in the rad range. So that's another factor there, is that there are more, but again, Elemental obviously came out a couple years ago, and so it had more time for people to watch it after the fact. Elio could follow that same metric. I think the big difference is that Elemental has had a much more positive reception in general versus Elio, which is having, again, predominantly negative reviews, with only 23 reviews. The word of mouth on Elio, clearly not there, and based on everything that I've seen about the movie, Strange World vibes are just way too strong for this one. Strange World, again, only made it to around $80 million worldwide. I suspect Elio will be around that mark too, if not a little higher, opening up to a stronger number. You still have the Disney machine behind you. They want it to be better than Strange World at the very least, but I honestly think they're going to try to push this film to 150 million. I don't think that's going to happen, though, based on what we're seeing. But that is the current case of Elio. So Elio, one of the worst openings in history. Again, Strange World is basically where we are with this. I, in my box office breakdown video yesterday, also had a comparison chart putting this up against these other films, and it's just not even close. Right? It's just not even close with just how bad this film actually is doing. One last word I will mention here before going back into the chat is another topic, which is that of Lilo and Stitch. Will it or will it not hit $1 billion? Now, last week, I was pretty confident saying, no, the numbers just aren't there. It's slowing down way too much. And based on the numbers that were reported at the time, that assessment is still accurate. That being said, we have new numbers as it was just a new weekend. And according to those new numbers, this is now a film that has made $910 million globally after only 5 weeks of release. That would mean it added another 20 to 30 million internationally alone, still dropping around 30-ish% within that range, both domestically and internationally. The drops continue in that same vein. $1 billion is on the table. Now, it's not going to be much higher than $1 billion, as the film had the potential to do after its opening weekend and after what seemed to be very positive word of mouth, but it is still a possibility. Now, for anyone's like, okay, I feel like I'm getting whiplash on this because first you said it is, then you said it's not. Again, I was much longer on the it is going to make $1 billion than I was on the not. In fact, it was a week in total that I said it was not going to make $1 billion before eventually these numbers came back, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I don't think it's there. It goes on to say that last week the international numbers were late to be updated to thenumbers.com and therefore seemed to indicate the film was slowing down too much to cross $1 billion. When the numbers were finally updated, and more importantly, and this is the key factor, that this past weekend's numbers were as strong as they were, the film's chances have swung once again into the likely to hit $1 billion category, and here is the reason why. So I kind of lay out point by point why I'm leaning towards this number and why I'm going back and forth. Okay, so for one, currently, as of the writing of the article, it had made $910 million globally after 5 weeks. Domestically, it had reached $386 million and dropped in the 30s percentage-wise this week. 3, at the same point of time, Minecraft was at $398 million domestically and making less money during the week. However, Minecraft did end up doing better on its 5th Saturday and Sunday. So, whereas the Lilo and Stitch movie is doing better in those day-to-day Monday through Thursday figures, even Friday figures, when it came to the actual weekend of Saturday and Sunday, the same week in time, right, the same 5th weekend for Minecraft was actually higher. So that's where it got its advantage up against this movie. So again, how does that dynamic move forward? If that continues, depending on how much more they're making weekly and how much less they're making weekend-wise, that could make the big difference between which one makes more domestically. Number 4, at the same point of release, Jurassic World Dominion for 2022, which had eked out $1 billion. That's why I put it up here, because it just crawled over the finish line. I think that's exactly what's going to happen with Lilo and Stitch, if it does happen at all. And because it eked out $1 billion before internationals, before rather leaving theaters, had made an adjusted $376 million by the end of its 5th weekend, though the internationals are what really pushed that movie over the edge. And so I do have that caveat that, well, it made $1 billion because of the internationals, but still, it is $1 billion film, and still, Lilo and Stitch is doing much better in comparison to the weekly numbers. This past weekend, number 5, Lilo and Stitch officially crossed the total international box office according to the numbers of the Minecraft movie, which ended its run at $522 million. That's right. So Lilo and Stitch has internationally made over the total international of Minecraft. That's a big factor, because that means even though it's still lagging behind the domestic of Minecraft, if it continues to overperform and beat it in the day-to-day numbers, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then only be losing the Saturday and Sundays by, again, an ever-decreasing amount, again, you can see why, hey, Minecraft film, what ended up happening to that movie? Hey, Minecraft movie ended its run, $522 million, remember, made over $950 million by the end of its run. And that's my last point there is number 6. Minecraft stopped at around $950 million, while Jurassic World Dominion stopped at adjusted $1.078 billion. So basically, this movie, based on its tracking and what it's tracking up against, it's going to either be right around the number of Minecraft or right around the number of Jurassic World Dominion. And that is the reason why I'm back and forth on this. That is the reason why my mind keeps changing. Hopefully, that kind of got you a little bit of a glimpse into my mind, into what goes on into the mind of a madman who covers the box office and numbers. All right, let's head back into the chat. All right, JS Pena at 746. Let me just make sure that everything is okay. By the way, it was just announced that apparently there has been a ceasefire announced between Israel and Iran. We'll see if it actually holds. We've heard a lot of ceasefires over the various wars between all the groups, and so far none of them have stuck. So again, it sounds really good on paper, and it fits this narrative that's been pushed. However, I will withhold judgment. Not the kind of stream for that conversation. By the way, if you want my thoughts and opinions on that, follow me over on X/Twitter. But just to put it out there just in case. Short saying, when you drink your water, it sounds like you are vaping. Definitely not. Nope. Just the high quality H2O. JS Pena, yes, more love for Lost World. I'm right there. Kimberly G, I come here for the math. Yes, indeed, Kimberly G. Short saying, I feel like I didn't see any ads for Elio, or perhaps they were not memorable. I think that is a big part of it too. There were definitely ads out there, but I just don't think they were very effective. I don't think, even if they likely did still spend a lot of money because it's Disney, I don't think that they really were effective in its outreach, meaning they had the trailers, but they didn't target the trailers very well. And so the movies that you would typically see to have that trailer play before it weren't really getting it to the same degree, or the films that were attached to the trailer were ones that didn't do very well, and so therefore, by proxy, less and less people heard about it because no one actually went to go see them in the first place. What's up, Geek True 64? Hail to you, my physical media brother. Thanks for being a member here on the channel also. Saying Jurassic Park is best of all. Not even close. Lost World is great, except for that final San Diego part. Part 3 is a guilty pleasure. World is fun. Then Park Ride 5 is awful. 6 was entertainingly awful. I think that's a fair assessment of them. I would also go Jurassic Park number 1, Lost World number 2. I would then go Jurassic Park 3. Because, yes, I do agree that it has a lot of issues. Guilty pleasure, I think, is a perfect way of describing what that one is. World, to me, it's a fun park ride, or fun theme park ride. I could see that. But it's also one that I honestly have no desire to ever watch again either. So it's a fun ride while you're there, but then you don't really care to go back to it. At least that's my experience. Yeah, and then 5 was garbage. I don't remember anything about it, and as was 6. In fact, 5 and 6 both combined together in my mind, with the only thing that really comes to mind as far as differences being that there is this whole, like, insects, infestation, global warming, climate change narrative in the most recent one, the number 6, that also brought the original cast back. It's just so bad. Smash all the things, Laura. Yes. That's the stuff, says King Kane Rumsky. Then I'm just saying Steiner Math is better. No, it ain't. It's good, but it ain't better. Forever Sci-Fi. Pixar in name only. The real Pixar died years ago. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Arnold, hey, good afternoon. Okay, so I saw your vid from yesterday, and now you're saying Stitch is likely to hit 1 billion now. May you elaborate more as to how now? Does it take long for internationals to update? Yeah, so hopefully, Arnold, hey, I answered that question in the last segment. Geek Truth adding on as a member, I think the last good Pixar movie I liked was Coco back in 2017. Coco was phenomenal. I don't know if this came out. It may have been 2016, actually, yeah, because there's Coco and Zootopia's up there. Again, I think Zootopia may have been before Coco, but those are the two that really come to mind as far as the more like modern day or close to modern Disney Pixar releases. I guess you could, because Elemental was just wasn't awful, but the ones that I go to, I think I actually liked the movie Soul. I know not everyone did. But I thought that the music was great and the animation is beautiful and it makes you think about a lot of things. It's got like all the cute stuff for the kids, but then it's got some philosophical stuff in there too. Not that I agree with the philosophical assessments that are going on, because it kind of indicates your pre-born mentality, which is not, again, theologically sound and not something that I agree with in any way. So I do think that could possibly lead some people astray, and so I do understand any criticisms of that. But it's not really trying to preach or teach anything to you. It's more of just a, hey, this is what things could be like, and isn't this a fun story of accepting yourself for the gifts that you have, not the gifts that you don't have, and helping others or sacrificing your own happiness for the happiness of others, right? So not putting it's kind of like the opposite of what they pushed in Toy Story 4 and what they pushed in Ralph Breaks the Internet, where they're pushing the mindset of, no, you need to do what makes you happy no matter what it does to anybody else. In Soul, instead, it was no, you should sacrifice to help other people. I don't know. That's one I go to as well. Arnold, hey, Keely Chow, you just got here. Why are you leaving so soon? Arnold, hey, do you feel Fantastic Four can save Elio flop? What will it take to recover? Depends on the budget of Elio. Again, if it's that $300 million number, I don't think Fantastic Four is going to do it. Because personally, I don't think Fantastic Four is going to do that well. I do not think the ground is very, to use lack of a better expression, I don't think the ground is very fertile for Fantastic Four. I think Jurassic World Rebirth is going to finally be the Jurassic World that loses steam to a degree that's noticeable. I could see it not getting 1 billion, for instance. And I know people are tired of the 1 billion number being put out there, but remember, all of the Jurassic Worlds have done that. That would make this the first. So even the really bad ones made over $1 billion, but the last one barely made it because the audience has been shrinking every single time for those movies. So the real question is, how much of that hardcore dinosaur-friendly audience, especially in China and especially in the international markets, how much are they still on board with this? Do they care that there is this reboot mentality? Do they care that Scarlett Johansson is being brought in? Do they care about any of these things? Only time will tell. Let's see. Steven, hail to you. Good to see you again on live stream, my friend. I'm back on the dating scene. Oh boy. And have lots of movie to catch up on. What do you recommend I take her to see in the theater that's out right now? Don't worry, by the way, she's not married. I asked beforehand. Okay, well, that's definitely an improvement. Definitely an improvement. Just also make sure that y'all are respectful of each other as being made in the image and likeness of God. Need I have to say more? As far as things that are out right now, I mean, we're kind of in this very bare bones season of movies at the box office. It looks like this coming weekend you have F1 the movie and Megan 2.0. I know people asked about that earlier, so we'll bring that back up a little later. So F1 sounds like a lot of fun. I don't know necessarily if your lady friend will enjoy that. Some ladies enjoy those kinds of movies. Others don't. Others also are kind of ambivalent and say, hey, if you're having fun, I'm having fun. So that might be one to look at. Megan 2 is supposed to be a horror film, but you'll have to have seen Megan 1 for it to make any sense. You got really not a whole lot else coming out that I could say I think is going to be really, really good. up until I'm intrigued by Naked Gun, I don't have any confidence in it because you just never know. Nobody 2, August 15th. Maybe the next film I actually have any level of excitement for. It's really it's really hard to say at this point. Let me see if I can pull up an earlier chart here. Let me see if I can pull up an earlier chart here. Let's pull this up on the screen too. So Steven asked about a recommendation for films out right now that he and his lady friend can go to see. Well, let's see what movies are actually still out in theaters. Let us see. Heard good things about Accountant 2, but I think that's pretty much done with its theatrical run. Thunderbolts was not good. I doubt that's in a lot of theaters anymore either. Final Destination Bloodlines, if you like those kinds of movies, maybe. I had fun with it, but again, it's gore. May not be a good date movie necessarily. Lilo and Stitch, I have a lot of criticisms of it. If you've never seen the animated, and if she's never seen the animated, it might be okay. But yeah. Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning has a lot of fun parts in it, but I think ultimately is just not worth it. Definitely skip Karate Kid Legends. It's just not worth the time or the money. Ballerina I had fun with, but it's definitely not as fun as the other John Wick movies. It's not the girl boss stuff, though. People keep saying that. The most people I see calling the whole ballerina thing a girl boss are people who have not seen the movie. In which case, it's like, no, then you have no idea what you're talking about at that point. Phoenician Scheme was interesting. I'll just leave it at that. How to Train Your Dragon, again, I don't like it because it is, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but it is too much like the animated movie. And what I mean by that is because it's so derivative of the original and because it takes very little changes, which is, again, if you're going to remake something, that's the way to do it. But it also is so much so that you think to yourself, why would I even want to spend time going to see it? I think it would be better you spending what probably no money because you may already have the film, but saving your money and watching it together and have a date night at home to watch the original How to Train Your Dragon. The score in that movie is still phenomenal. But if you don't mind those problems and if you think that you might enjoy it, check it out. That could be a fun date movie. And Materialist is an A24 movie, but it's kind of like a rom-com of sorts. I have not seen it yet, but yeah, you never know. 20 years later, no. And that's really it. So I would say there's really not a whole lot of movies out right now that I could really recommend going to see in theaters. Eastland Burkholder, what's going on? General Wingster, hail to you. Short saying, I know this is a bit obvious, but ever since Disney Plus started, Disney content has become more frequent, but just so has not only become more frequent, but also just so mundane. I would agree. Yeah, I think because now they have had such a focus and a hyper focus really to make as many movies as they can in as short a time as possible, it has really led to them, right? That drop of quality is very real. And because of that, they've just basically been able to hit status quo, mundane, not innovating. And then when they do, quote, innovate with a, quote, original story like Elio, they don't make money. And it's not because people don't want those types of movies. We've seen more original films take over. We look at a film like Sinners. Again, I don't know if it's based off a previous source material or not, but I would imagine most people who saw that movie were not watching it because they were like, ooh, I really like the graphic novel or I really like this or that. It's because they heard how great the movie was or how much fun people had with the movie. Again, I don't quite understand why people liked it, but they did. So that was something too where it's like, okay, original film, more so original film than anything else. It's not a part of a massive franchise, for instance. And it was able to do so much better than what anyone could have anticipated. Punched well above its weight. But that's the exception and not the norm. And yeah, Disney is a huge and major culprit in that whole discussion. Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthington, what's up, Gary? Arnold, hey, Disney announced familiar actor will return for Pirates of the Caribbean. You think Johnny Depp will return? If so, will you watch? It wouldn't surprise me because if the price is right, he'll take it. They also realize, you know what? We need some movies that are going to make some money. The issue is that the Pirates franchise overstayed its welcome by quite a bit, and those numbers kept dropping quite a bit as time went on. It's been a long time since I've looked at the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, so let me try and at least get... No, I wasn't looking for Pirates 2021. Had never even heard of that movie, numbers. How dare you? All right, Curse of the Black Pearl. So just the fact that this unadjusted for inflation back in 2003, mind you, oh boy, do I feel old, 22 years ago. 2003, I would have been in high school. I would have been in the early years of high school as a freshman or sophomore in high school. Oh boy. But unadjusted numbers for inflation worldwide, it made $654 million. That's easily over $1 billion today. Easily over that. All right, let's pull up the franchise numbers for Pirates, and just to get this back up here. So the question was asked about. They say that a major player is coming back to the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. If it is Johnny Depp, would that be enough for me? Let's go into further about, again, is it impossible for that to happen as far as them getting him back? No, because actors will do almost anything for money, it seems. Here's the reason why, though, it may not be the best move going forward, okay? So, first movie makes $654 million. That's not adjusted for inflation. That was well over $1 billion. Go to Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. The sequel came out just a few years later. It made over $1 billion. Much higher than that when you adjust for inflation. The third film, At World's End, not as strong, but 2007, meaning when you adjust for inflation, ding, 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 that still made over $1 billion. You then go on Strange Tides, ding, 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 that one also would have made over $1 billion. And, because, again, it already made that much. And then you go, and that was also the most expensive film to date. So, again, interestingly enough, though, with a budget of $379 million, you know what that means? This film really was not a profitable movie. Because you need to make 3 times your budget. That's not 3 times your budget. So overall, it'd still be fine because you still got all the merchandising and POV, VOD sales and Blu-ray and 4K sales, etc. Like all those things would add on to it. So a small loss here, but would be able to make that up. Then you jump to 2017, and $230 million is what they spent, and they made $794. So once again, bumping up right up against that possible break even. Here's the other issue. Look at these numbers, internationals. Okay, here's why it's a problem. Because when you have more coming from the international market, you make less money. You only make 40% of that money from the international markets. You make 55% from the domestic. And so these domestic numbers are really not all that good. Now, the adjusted for inflation domestics, 572, 730, 508, 348, 217, you can see, okay, it was dropping quite a bit, right? So it had a big opening. It grew to 730, had a massive drop-off with At World's End. That's when it started to go more so towards the internationals. Did not make it up. In fact, got worse with On Stranger Tides, and then fell off a cliff for Dead Man Tell No Tales back in 2017. And just for inflation, this would be the first film in the franchise to not hit $1 billion at the box office. And so, with those being the case, there's that law of diminishing returns. That's why we've had a pause, right? It's not just because of the whole Johnny Depp stuff. It's also because of that, too. Financially, again, they're making money after the fact, too. But it was not nearly as profitable as it once was, right? You look at that first and second movie, that's massive profits, because when you add in all of those extra sales after the fact, boy, oh boy, were those massive. Even At World's End, not doing as well, still did well enough to where you add in all those other factors, it made a lot of money. On Stranger Tides also made $1 billion, but it was also a very, very weak movie. 6 years pass, then they make this one, and it's not being bought anymore. People are starting to get tired of it. People are starting to kind of realize, oh, okay, the quality of these movies is getting worse and worse and worse, and you get what you get with that one, right? So the bigger issue to me is I don't know necessarily if they would bring him back, because I don't know if they are really looking at it as being a guaranteed financial hit or not. Because Lord knows they would need someone like him to try to get any audience back. But even with him, I don't know if it would be enough. Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthington, some films can't even get a 50%. How dare you? General Wingster, I'm going to eat some pizza. Be right back. You enjoy that pizza. Short saying, I was going to see the new Lilo until I heard that in this version, Ohana means foster care. Yes. And then they tried to in a post-credit scene, which seemed very forced and tacked on, of, oh, she has a transporter that allows her to travel between her college and home. So she didn't really abandon Lilo. She didn't really say, oh, yes, let the village take care of her instead, type of mentality. Oh boy. Steven, out of all the Superman popcorn buckets, which one do you like the most, and how would you rank them between AMC, Cinemark's, Regals? I don't really care about them. I'm not into the popcorn bucket game as much because I think it took the whole phenomenon, which I forget where it started completely. I want to say it was the Doom popcorn bucket because of what it looked like. And then you had some like Deadpool Wolverine that was able to play with that a bit. And you've had some pretty good ones. There was one that was like a Batman signal, which I thought was pretty cool. And I know that the Jaws one is out, and it's like a shark, and the shark's mouth opens, and it's like, okay. But I've not really got into it. I don't really necessarily think he does all that well. And I don't really think that they're worth as much money as they charge for them. So having then said that, having not seen or remembering what the popcorn buckets were, I honestly don't care. Diet Spam on the Green Machine Rumble saying, Odin does his own live streams. Yes, I've done it for years now, bro. Where have you been is the real question. And yes, I talk as well. Arnold, hey, your thoughts on Disney releasing all episodes of the Ironheart within 2 weeks? First off, I'm very thankful because it's going to make getting through it faster, which is nice. Two, it also just shows you that level of desperation that they have, because by doing that, the very few people that are going to watch it are going to boost their watch hour time, because it's going to be factoring in 3 episodes worth of content. And there are many ways you can manipulate those numbers to indicate something that's not actually true. Don't be surprised to hear, oh, it's the best numbers that we've had so far this year. It's like, that's not saying much, Disney. You like to always make self-referential content and comparisons. Let's see. Laura Short saying, my favorite part of Resident Alien is that before he prepares to destroy the world, he gathers up like a dozen pizzas. Yes. And here's the thing. I really enjoyed Resident Alien's first season. And then the second season, it kind of goes off the rails a bit. It gets a little, like, for instance, there's like one episode, I think it's in season 2, where it's all the female characters. And it's the focus of the episode. And it's like so clearly like girl boss energy. It's the same process by which in Avengers Endgame, when all of the female superheroes somehow end up at the same time, at the same place, for that girl power moment nonsense. That is what I can remember happening in one of the episodes. And it just was like, okay, is this really where we're going to go with it? And it had just a couple of extra things like that. Because for the most part, season 1 is very apolitical, which is why I like it a lot. I think it's very refreshing. Steven, do you think that Avatar 3 will join the exclusive $2 billion box office? It could. What I can say for sure is Avatar 3 will make $1 billion. Law of diminishing returns, however, I think would indicate that the chances of it getting to $2 billion, though possible, are not as high as what some might think. A couple of factors here. For one, I think there are more than you would think, a large number of people that have finally woken up to just how bad these movies are and are not going to actually spend their money on this one. Now, evidence. Okay. Looking at Avatar, the first movie versus the second one. The first movie had a domestic gross of $785 million before adjusting for inflation. So we could say that's probably closer to what, 900 million, maybe even $1 billion domestically. Compare that to from 2022, The Way of Water, 684. Even if you adjust that for inflation, let's just be generous here, that's about a $300 million drop. $300 million worth of people less domestically saw Avatar, The Way of Water. Internationally, we can do something similar. $2.9 billion unadjusted. For the first Avatar film, we're talking about north of $3 billion if you adjust for inflation and exchange rates and such. Way of Water, $2.3 billion. So if they did the math on it once, and Avatar, the first movie, when you adjust all those things for inflation, is closer to $4 billion or so. And the most recent one, obviously still very high, at around $2.9 to $3 billion when you adjust. That's still a drop of $1 billion. It's one of those things where two things can be true at once. $3 billion is a lot of money, but $3 billion is also a lot less than $4 billion. All right, $1 billion is a large amount of money. That's a lot of ticket sales. So what I think is going to happen is I think the law of diminishing returns indicates we'll find another drop with this movie too. But if that is the case, then, kind of answering your question, it would seem to indicate $2 billion is on the table. I think $2 billion is on the table for it. For me, it's like I'm 100% sure it's going to hit $1 billion. I have that much surety, at least on that front. And then I'm about 50-50 on the $2 billion, leaning more towards it getting to $2 billion. Gary Banjo Sandwich got you covered with the math, always. And Blazing64, what's up? Arnold Hay saying, your odds that Ray movie will happen in the big screen. Anytime soon? Not likely. Michael Burgett, on this date in 1989, we got the Tim Burton's Batman, still one of the most iconic comic book films of all time. Agreed. Short, I completely forgot that the zombies in the 28 universe aren't dead, but infected. Changes how you feel about 28 Years sequel a bit. Still too much full frontal. Oh goodness, way too much full frontal nudity, specifically male nudity. Unnecessary, completely unnecessary nonsense. Yeah, the more I think about the movie, the less I like it. I'm still not as extreme as your review, though. 0%. I can't go that low. Because there are still some things I really enjoy, right? The first act, I think, is a pretty solid act. But yeah, I think the biggest criticism it's getting from the hardcore fans, though, is how it seems to make a very drastic shift away from the infected aspect of the first two movies into much more of a full-fledged zombie. It's like, oh, so they're zombies now? They can fly now. They're zombies now. Oh, okay. Kagan Rumsky, your prediction on whether ScarJo will do a good or bad job in Jurassic movie. I don't think that she's all that great of a person/actor in the first place, so I would say not likely. Rob D, hello Odin, I had a comment on Israel and Iran, but yes, this is not the stream for that, and the tube of you has already deleted all of my comments on other channels on the subject. Steven, do you think Spider-Man Brand New Day will make more than No Way Home? If I had to guess, no. Depends on who's in the movie. The reason why the last Spider-Man made as much as it did was because it came out at the exact right time with the right hint of nostalgia at a time when it was very dark here in our country and in our world, right? COVID was still going on, the whole lockdown nonsense. Box office was awful. Remember, I mentioned this all the time. A week before Spider-Man came out, West Side Story came out, and no one went to go see it. It was a massive flop. And the death knells were being rung for the box office, and I said, hey, let's see what happens here. And sure enough, it made billions of dollars. No one would have expected it to happen. But it's because you brought the OG Spider-Man back. It's because you had the member berries. And they weren't just member berries. They were good member berries. They were well executed. It's a movie that is worth watching more than once. Margaret Baguette, Zootopia is not a Pixar film. It's a Walt Disney animated features film. It's still animated from Disney. Here's the thing, okay? The separation between Disney and Pixar is no longer that big of a deal. Like to me, I don't really understand. I know that they're different companies, but they're all owned by Disney. So it's not like Disney Pixar has completely different things going on for it than Disney Animation does. So yes, I do give to you that fact, but still, Zootopia is an animated movie under the Disney umbrella. Pixar, whether a Pixar name's attached to it or not, doesn't really make that much of a difference to me. I know there's different people in charge of these different companies, but it's still under the Disney umbrella, and so therefore they are the same. Short saying, how could someone not like Soul? That movie was so cool. I know, right? Geek364 saying, Zootopia wasn't Pixar, but it wasn't bad. Soul was okay Pixar movie, not one I care to revisit, though. I don't remember if I was talking about only Pixar films or if I was just in a more general way trying to talk about animated movies. I think I was trying to talk more about animated movies. If I said Pixar by accident, I apologize. Because yes, I do know Zootopia is Disney animation. Hardwick, Jurassic World Rebirth is reported to have a budget of $180 million. Gareth Edwards tends to be good at keeping budgets under control. Maybe, but the studios don't. And Gareth Edwards is still at the whim of the studios. So we'll see what happens. One Punch Man, Tolkien fan. What's going on, One Punch Man? Welcome back to the chat. Let's see. Hardwick, we are not talking about that tonight, sir, and it's not open forum, so no. And please don't send it to me. I've read it. Rob D. Fantastic Four has never been a massive success on the big screen. I think if this new one is not a big success, they just won't make any more. That's a good point. Yas Chats. Oh, hey, with F1 and Megan 2 coming out this weekend, this will definitely slow down Lilo and Stitch even to come closer to $1 billion. No, again, Arnold, hey, I mentioned this a lot. Just because there's competition and just because more movies come out does not mean that a movie is going to make less necessarily. Because you look at F1's audience, Megan's audience. Those are both adult audiences. That is going to be where you might have somewhat of a fight. But even then, F1 is going to be predominantly male, middle-aged persons. Megan, that's going to be your teenage crowd, predominantly males. Maybe with a higher showing from the female audience there. So you're having different demographics for all three movies. So that's even more reason why. No, I'm sorry. It's not going to slow them down because it's not going to take anybody away. No one who's going to see, like, here's the other thing. Remember, people are going to be like, oh, I'm going to go see Lilo and Stitch this weekend. They're not going to say, oh, wait, there's other movies out. I'm going to see that instead. It's like, no. I was planning on seeing Lilo and Stitch, and so I'm going to go see it. Gary Banjo Sandwich saying, new Jurassic director is using real locations like his sci-fi film The Creator. Well, that's very good. My Brigette, I would suggest The Life of Chuck if it's still playing near you. I was not seeing it, unfortunately. Hardwick, while I acknowledge that the first Jurassic Park movie is the objectively best one, I subjectively didn't enjoy it much. I find the third and fourth films the most enjoyable. That's sad. I love the first films. The score alone is the happiest thing. Like, I actually went to go see the Jurassic Park 3D recut. Like, it was the anniversary special edition, and the 3D rendering was actually not terrible either, but it was the only way to watch it at my theater. And I wanted to hear that John Williams score on the big screen again. And oh man, it was so good. Geek Truth. I'm looking forward to Formula One just because of Joseph Kosinski, and Jurassic World because I want a fun theme park ride experience. Hope it is better than the last two Jurassic movies. Here's the thing though. Yeah, I hear that argument a lot, the theme park experience. But do you want a theme park experience that has a bunch of rides that are on the brink of breaking down, and you happen to be on one of the rides that has one of those freak accidents where your legs get chopped off? Because that to me is the better comparison. It's like, look, just because it's a theme park ride doesn't mean that it's a fun theme park ride. Doesn't mean that it's an entertaining theme park ride, because part of a good, let's use a roller coaster analogy. You know what you need to have a good roller coaster? A good design. You know what you need to have a good movie? A good story. So even if there are subjectively, right, fun things in there, and I can never take away from that, we should not go in and we should not hold our films to the standard of, oh, please just make it a fun time, even if it is filled with crap. We should expect more from our movies, just like we could expect more from our theme parks. Gagan Remsky, I once took a date to Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Oh, goodness gracious. Arnold Hay, study shows only 42% of moviegoers arrive by showtime due to excessive commercials. Not surprised by that at all. Steven, on average, how much do you think I should bring money-wise? Haven't been to the movies lately, and I'm sure prices have skyrocketed. Last time I went, tickets were $8, popcorn and drink were $15. Why are you asking me that? Go to your theater site and go and look at your tickets. You can see your ticket prices now. You can also pre-order the popcorn and stuff, so you can also look and see what that is. I can't help you with that. I'm not gonna do the research for you, dude. This is your date. You gotta do some work, man. Come on. Becky Brown, what's going on? Just finished some pizza for dinner. Nice. We had our fire in honor of St. John the Baptist. It is the what's the day it's often known by here? So one of the names given to this day is the Vigil of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist. And then on my little calendar app is, I like the way it's listed here, St. John's Eve. So I have Christmas Eve because it's the eve of the Nativity of Christ. St. John's Eve is the eve of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist. So part of the tradition that you can have with that is having a bonfire of sorts. So we built a fire, we had some hot dogs, and some s'mores for dessert. It was delicious. Also, a late honoring of yesterday's saint, St. Thomas More. According to whatever, again, we follow both calendars to a certain degree. But one of the things that you can do on Thomas More's feast day is to have s'mores, because St. Thomas More, s'more. I don't know. I thought it was clever. Rob D, I remember Pirates of the Caribbean. Dead Man's Chest did very well. Disney Channel promoted the hell out of that movie, particularly the mill wheel duel on that island. Peter Fontaine, still need a good 4K release of the Pirates of the Caribbean. That up-converted 4K looked terrible. Guy, what's up, man? Saying, hey, how was your day? Do you like Elio? Do you think Elio could have legs like Elemental? They both have similar word of mouth. They do not have similar word of mouth. I broke this down in my box office video yesterday, so please make sure to watch it. Also, my box office article at geeksabers.com. We are not seeing at all the same numbers there. You are wrong. Justin C. Hope F1 will be as good as Ford v Ferrari, which I thought was excellent. I agree. Hardwick, James Gunn said, there's an actor Superman who reads every Reddit thread and watches all of the videos, including by people who make their living by hating us. Yes, we talked about this on the Salty Saturday stream. Victor Fontaine, I have the Dune, Bat, Signal, and Ghostbusters popcorn buckets. I think those were definitely some of the better ones. Oh, Hardwick, these... yours are way too long, dude. Didn't say who the actor was, except that it's not David Cornsweet, but it's one of the top 5 actors in the film. My guess is Nathan Fillion. Maybe. Short. My favorite Resident Alien episode was when he fell into the crevice and got hurt. Great acting in that scene. Oh, yeah. Agreed. Justin C. Almost forgot thoughts on Mobland Season 1 finale. Season 2 just got greenlit. I enjoyed it. We had a stream where actually I gave my full thoughts on that. Let's see. Diet Spam tagging to say, with streaming, physical media sales seem obsolete. Was this a pretty big hit for the studios? Yeah, I mean, they used to make a lot of money on those physical media sales, and it has been a huge drop in sales for them because of the dawn of streaming. But I would actually say the bigger problem they have is the fact that they're abandoning physical media. If they were to actually go the route of maybe even vinyl or other physical media's formattings that do actually, and mediums that do still work and do still have a community for them, if they actually started giving them what they wanted, they could do really, really well. I mean, you look at some of these big releases, they sell out. You look at any of these movies, Kingdom of Heaven, the special 4K release sells out. Now, unfortunately, a lot of it is because you have people who are scalpers who will buy up a bunch of copies so they can upprice them. But the fact that they can even upsell them for as much as they do shows you there is a market. So there's clearly still a lot of people that want to buy physical media. A couple of issues. One, they're not offering the best things as far as their movies, as far as the quality of their product. And two, they're really, unfortunately, not taking advantage of the number of people that there are and having their prices reflect that either. Disney is price gouging people. They're announcing 4Ks and starting off the price at $60 for a 4K Steelbook. Just the other day, they had, quote, dropped the price of, was it Snow White 4K Steelbook for still $40? I'm sorry. That movie lost money. That movie was crap. Who in the world is going to pay $40 for that? But it's because of that type of mentality from the studios, in this case, overcharging, and therefore actually themselves, they are taking a market that could be successful because it is already, but could be even more so, and they are basically saying, hey, all of these people that are still buying our stuff, that are still active here, you're gone. Like they are just trying to destroy it. And it's ridiculous because it's a very good source of revenue for them. Vitamontane, going away simpler in Avatar 3 prediction. Another $600 million drop to the only $1.7 billion box office. Maybe. But again, when you adjust for inflation, the numbers do still, I think, pan out a bit differently. Gary says, Invisible Dino in new film. Do you think he saw us? Or the John Cena. I forget. Hearing the news that John Bernthal's Punisher will be in Spider-Man Brand New Day is some good news for me. It definitely has some potential. The word of mouth I've heard is that Scarlett Johansson does a solid job in Jurassic World Rebirth, but her character is pretty generic, and it sounds like she's definitely not girl boss in it. Okay. Rob D, I honestly think Spider-Man No Way Home would have hit $3 billion if COVID didn't happen, but everything else remained the same. I think it actually would have made about the same because think of it this way. Do you think that the people who wanted to go see the movie saw the movie? Based on everything I saw, it seemed like that was the case. Anyone who didn't see it probably wouldn't have seen it anyway. So I take your point. It's possible, but the reason why I like No Way Home is because it destroys the whole COVID narrative. Like, to me, it was no. That's what would have happened had the movie not been a success. However, it was. Because people were like, I'm so sick and tired of this. This looks really good. I want to go see this. So. All right. King and Remsky. Isn't Megan 2 copyright infringement? I see what you did there. Short. My attention was starting to wander, and then Odin started talking about leg chopping. Boom. You're welcome. Hardwick. I find it interesting that John Flickinger said his favorite part of Jurassic World Rebirth is the river raft scene, as it's been confirmed that the scene is directly taken from the first book. Cool. Q64. A fun theme park ride means the fun is implied. Like a popcorn movie, I gave up on thought-provoking philosophical discussions in my Jurassic Park movies after the first one. You don't have to have... But that's the other thing. You don't have to have a deep philosophical conversation for it to be objectively good. Like, just all you have to do is make your story competent. The fact that they're not even doing that... That's equivalent to them making a ride that's either incomplete or a ride that you get stuck on. Okay, yeah, you had fun at parts, but you're still at the end of the day stuck on a ride that you can't get off. Jenna Wingster. I got a date with my mom. Should I bring $20 or go Dutch? Shout out to the moms out there. Hey, be respectful to your mama. Rob D. Odin power reading through these chat messages. Some more so than others. Forever Sci-Fi, Amazon, and other sites pre-selling at high price before dropping it on release day hurts 4K sales. Yes. But a lot of that is the studio too, right? Disney, and I know Geek64 can absolutely speak to this very fact. Disney overcharges theirs to an insane degree. Again, sometimes starting their 4K steelbooks at $60. It's insane. Steven, I was asking you because you're a professional moviegoer and AMC employer. I am not. I used to work at AMC years ago. It's been a long time for me since I've worked there. And also, everyone's region is different, and only you know exactly what theaters are close to you and what their ticket prices can be. Look it up, Steven. Geek64. Oh, and I'll be back with more videos on my video channel on my channel soon. This month has been the longest break I've taken in a while. Thanks for watching, man. No problem, dude. I'll be back within a release wall video next. Ooh, yeah! Can't wait for your July coverage of what's coming out. Bunch of stuff is coming out soon. I think the Minecraft film is being shipped out now, and there's a bunch. I pre-ordered a lot of things. Steven. Oh boy, $70 here in California for 2-ticket movies, popcorn, and drink. Yeah, now I realize who I stay single. Oh boy, this is getting out of hand. I'll be honest, $70 isn't the worst thing. Also, you might be able to mitigate some of that with an AMC A-list / Movie Pass subscription, depending on how much time you have. Again, you'll have to pay more up front, but there are benefits in there. So again, take that for what it is. You can also try one of the old razzle-dazzle techniques of sneaking in a snack. But again, I do not condone that behavior, but you do you. Gee, I think the reason why Disney Steelbooks cost a lot because Sony now puts out the 4K for Disney, so they might have to split the profits. You could possibly say that point, but if Sony does that for others too, and their prices are still okay, it would still put the blame on Disney. Grabthar's Hammer. Even my mom, in her 70s, enjoyed 28 years later. Just got in, so don't know what we're talking about. Whoa. She's 70. She's in her 70s, and she enjoyed 28 years later. I would never take my mom. She's in her like late 60s now. I would never take my mom to that movie, ever. Arnold, hey, was joking. I know you're a teacher, but yeah, bring a former AMC employee. I would assume you get major discount connects across the state. No. Once you are no longer an AMC employee, you get nothing. If I was still at home, I might have been able to keep those connections up, and I might have been able to take advantage of that. But no. Being out of state, a lot of the people that I worked with are probably gone. Turnaround is very high in AMCs in general. So if anything, there's managers that might still be there. The GM likely is still there that I work for. But Forever Sci-Fi, pre-order the Casper 4K, Monty Python, and the Holy Grail 4K Steelbooks. Gambling, they'll drop the price before charging me. Yeah, that's the other thing too. If you buy on Amazon, anytime there's a price change, and there usually is, you get that discount. Short, if we don't stop posting Odin, we'll have to stay forever. Well, I'm going to be wrapping things up soon, so please, if you could hold off on any more questions so we can get through these last comments, that would be very much appreciated. Oh, let me get the main screen back up. I don't know why I kept it up for so long, because I do have to wrap things up here. Geek364 saying, Disney not only has the highest price steelbooks, but they don't even offer basic 4K options anymore. Only way to get 4K steelbooks for most releases now. Yes. And for those that don't know what that means is that Disney knows there are people that just want to get the highest quality version of the film. So they know they have a large audience that would just buy the 4K. But they don't want to give them the 4K because they know they can convince at least some, if not many of them, to give an extra $10, $20 to buy the 4K Steelbook set, in which case they're spending that much more money, and then they still get their 4K. Yeah, Disney is not good to the fans. Steven, I can't sneak in a snack. This lady thinks I have class and high standards. How dare you? I mean, just get big pockets, okay? Get some cargo shorts, cargo pants. Just put like a baggie of like Honey Nut Cheerios. That's what I would do. Honey Nut Cheerios. Victor Fontaine, physical media sales peaked in 2005 at $16 billion. In 2024, sales fell to just under $1 billion, up a little bit this year, but that is due to higher prices. And again, much of that is their fault. The decisions they made, not just about the streaming either. It's about what they've done with physical media. Steven, how far have you gotten away to sneak in food? As for me, I managed to sneak in a whole meal from In-N-Out. I've never gone that far. So typically it's been, as I said, like a bag of Honey Nut Cheerios, right? A very small snack like that. The largest thing I ever snuck in really wasn't that large either. I lived in New York City for college for about 4 years, and I came home during the summers to Louisiana. But when I was up in New York, I saw as many movies as I could because we had you could get student ticket pricing from there was a group on campus that sold tickets. You spent $5 and you got a pass to go see a movie basically. And you could go see almost anything without paying anything extra. If you wanted to go see like an IMAX or 3D, you would just pay the surcharge on top. It's a pretty good deal, right? $5 for a movie in New York, even back in 2011, which is when I graduated. Like that still would have been a really good deal nonetheless. But with that being said, there were a couple of times when I went to go see a very early matinee showing because they were also cheaper tickets if for any reason the passes ran out. And I had bought an egg. It was an egg and cheese sandwich on a bagel or on a croissant. I think it was on a croissant from the street vendors because street food on New York is just, it's beautiful. So I brought my egg and cheese sandwich in, and that was the biggest thing that I snuck in. Really not a whole lot. And even when I did, I still would buy a drink or something else. So, Gee, if you are AAA and Costco card, you can get AMC tickets for cheap. AMC A-List is perfect, dude. Hardwick, so I take it that 28 years later didn't live up to the trailer, the one with the Rudyard Kipling poem. Nope, it unfortunately did not. AMC charges Odin more now because he quit. Gary Banjo Sandwich. OTM in here, Night Bro. Yeah, I'm wrapping things up. Geek 64 Free Willy is getting a Blu-ray reprint tomorrow. It has been selling for $100 on eBay for years now. Kind of crazy. It also kind of is like, if you're in that collector space, whenever the out-of-print movies get reprints, all of a sudden, if you're looking at yours as an investment and value, you're kind of like, oh no, the value of some of my biggest hits are going to take a huge dive. Forever Sci-Fi, those Disney Steelbooks are inspired at best. Agreed. Gee, what school did you go to in NYC? I won't say specifically. Rob D, movie studios won't offer just one physical media format anymore because they can't charge $30 for a new movie. It's always 4K plus Blu-ray, DVD, and digital. Yep. But here's the other thing too, though, Rob D, and that's more so to what Geek True 64 is trying to say. They, at the very least, most studios will at least offer a 4K Blu-ray combo pack or something similar to that, so that you don't have to spend on the 4K Steelbook, because that Steelbook always will have that premium. So the fact that they're not willing to even give a generic 4K, even a 4K Blu-ray combo pack, they're not willing to do that at all for a cheaper price. It's saying they want to gouge the fans. They want to gouge their buyers and force them that direction if that's what they want. Do you mean bacon, egg, and cheese? I think I actually ended up just getting egg and cheese. I don't think I got bacon on mine. I like their egg and cheese. I don't know if I trust their bacon. I think sometimes I got the bacon, though. Sacre bleu, the deadly poke of Zorro. My 76-year-old mother loves the Alien movies. She has been a fan since 1970. Well, that makes a little bit of difference, right? Because if she's liked them since 1979, she was much younger when those came out, so it makes sense for her to still be a fan. Steven says, damn, you need to be sponsored by AMC. You just got me to subscribe to AMC A-List. Now I can take multiple ladies to the movie dates. How did I just find this out and by you? Well, keep in mind that when you buy the AMC A-List, it covers your ticket. You do still have to pay for their ticket separately. But again, up front, you're spending $20-ish on yourself. But it does cover you not only for your movie, but also any future tickets that you buy for yourself. I think you might get a discount on the second ticket. I think you might be able to not have to worry about paying the online fee, for instance. But I know they recently updated the system, because it used to be 3 movies a week. Now it's 4 movies a week. I don't know if they changed anything as well with the second ticket, but it's still well worth it, especially if you go to see a lot of movies. And if anything, it can motivate you to see more movies. My Brigette, I know what frustrates me as a physical media collector is when studios only release a digital copy and no physical. Ooh, agreed. Absolutely. And again, please no more comments or questions. I am trying to wrap this thing up. My Brigette, I know what frustrates. Got that. This will blow your mind. The Black Widow 4K Steelbook is going for $109 on eBay, and that is, oh my goodness. Oh, the poor soul that spends that much money has to have a lot of problems. I'm trying to get out of here. I'm trying, but Geek came back. AMC workers get AMC stubs cast. It's free tickets, but you only get it for free 2 hours before showtime. Oh, did they change it? Because when I was working at AMC, as long as you had to phone in to get permission, but it was very easy. Like, you just had to sign. You just had to go there. You could bring in, I think, 1 or 2, depending on what level you were. You could bring in either one guest with you or a second guest with you, and you would then sign the log, and you could then go see the movie at any time. There were no restrictions for AMC employees. Graphthar's Hammer, I'm trying to, man. Anyway, that's going to be it for me, everybody. Thank y'all again for being here. This has been a ton of fun, but we are a little bit over where we typically end. Not by a whole lot here, but I had a lot of fun. So thank y'all for being here. Shout out to everyone who was hanging out in the chat, everyone who was tagging, everybody who was having our conversation on these things. We talked a lot about the box office. We talked a lot about Elio being a box office failure, box office flop, and we will talk more tomorrow. We will talk more on Wednesday. That's right, Wednesday morning. So not tomorrow, but Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We will have a Good Morning Asgard podcast stream. We can talk more about the films coming out this weekend and other topics like it. Thank y'all again for being here. I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody. I'm going to go get a nice glass of chocolate milk. It just sounds so delicious right now. You guys are all amazing people. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illich and Miss Martin Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Martin Muses. Also to my Subscribestar people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. Also a huge shout out to my newest YouTube member, Raichu. And lastly, to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy, shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing, and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.